Okay, this is Rudy Knapp, and this is Legacy Building a Kingdom. Today, I just want to give you a thought of the day, something that's been weighing on my mind a little bit. But I want to talk about celebration of life. In life, we have many people that are going to come and go. Sometimes, when this happens, we have a lot of sorrow, we have a lot of anger, we have a lot of upset feelings inside us, sometimes regret. And when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about people passing away. Obviously, we have friendships that come and go, we have relationships that come and go as well. But in any case, when someone passes away, there's this deep hurt inside us, and it's something that never goes away. So today, I want to talk a little bit about that. I think that obviously we've all gone through this. Obviously, it is a topic in which everybody can relate to. When I say this in general. We have funerals and we have uh, days in which we remember people. And today is May 5th, and I will always live in this day of remembering my brother Rob. My brother Rob passed away on May 5th in 1992. So we're talking 33 years ago or so. This is a day that will always be embedded in my brain. Every detail of the day, every detail of what happened will always be embedded in my life. And it's okay because I've come through this growth period of my life where I started to understand that we need to celebrate instead of looking at it as a day in which I had so much anger at times and so much regret and, you know, so many things that have happened to me because of this day. And as I preach a little bit about seeing the positive in specific events that happen in our life, one of the things that I come up with is how do you take on such a horrific thing of losing someone where you no longer have that in your life, and how do you apply it to your life today as a positive manner? So I know for a fact that this has happened with me. It took me a long time. I talked a little bit in one of the episodes about how I found God. My brother passed away. I was in sixth grade, and in seventh grade, I got baptized, and I had some amazing godparents. And my parents decided to get us baptized because we did not go to church. And then I started to go to church on a weekly basis throughout high school by myself. So it gave me an opportunity to find God. It gave me an opportunity to put things in perspective of how life is actually exists. So I just want to make sure that we talk a little bit about this idea of taking life for granted. And taking life for granted means failing to appreciate its value and the blessings within it. Often we neglect simple things or simple joys, and we focus on what is perceived as lacking. So let's think about that. We focus on the lacking of what's happening in life instead of focusing on what we actually do have in life, that we actually can breathe, that we actually wake up every morning. We're not focusing on that positive view. We are more focused on the things that are happening that we don't have, or the way this life is turning out to be that isn't. Uh, You know, it's real easy to do that. And the negative aspect is real easy. We talk about a lot on this podcast about changing the way you're thinking. I generally believe that I have changed the way I think about life and how I perceive forward in most things. There's still going to be some negatives that come out, but there is an intentional aspect of trying to see the positive so that you can move forward and live a happier life. I'll go back to my brother Rob. Um, for a long period of time, I found a way to put his death on my shoulders. And what I did was I had to determine that I have to have a good life. I have to be successful because I'm here and he's not. And this is me being vulnerable because this is an upsetting topic. But that being said, you know, I don't believe anyone owes anyone anything. And I've lived my life, my entire life, with that aspect of thinking that way. And it's very, very difficult to talk about, but it's also difficult to understand, why did I take on such a burden? And the reality of it is I didn't understand the positives in that situation. I didn't understand God. I didn't understand, you know, some of the things that relate to why things happen. And it's really hard to understand now. Everybody will question the same thing. Well, why do people get taken from us? Well, you know, no one's going to be able to answer what's God's plan. What's God's plan? So we have to live life understanding there is a plan. We have to live life understanding that it's beyond our capability of understanding. And that's hard for a lot of people. So instead of being sorry and being upset and being angry about losing someone, what about celebrating what we did have? My brother lived for 16 years on this earth. My kids are turning 14 years old, and it puts a lot of things in perspective. We are not promised every day. It's very difficult to go forward and think and take for granted, like I just talked about, that we get to breathe every day, that we get to get up and we get to accomplish something every day. We get to grow. We get to become better people. And if anything that you guys get from this podcast, please make sure you understand we are bettering ourselves every single day because we have life. We're given an opportunity, and not everybody has that. So, I push for bettering yourself. I push for growth mindset. I push for this concept of do something every single day to make a difference in your life and those around you, your kingdom. And so I'll continue to do that. And the reason I want to say this is because, if people were to describe my brother Rob, the first thing that come out of their mouth is he's funny. He was a class clown. He was a daredevil. He was goofy. He always joked around. He's a rule breaker. He was defiant. He found ways to make people laugh. And it describes him for sure. Definitely opposite of me. I was more of a rule follower. He was more of a defiant. But to me, that's not what I describe him as. I mean, those are things that definitely describe him, but that's not what comes to mind for me. I've always done some reflecting on him, what I could remember. I mean, I was in 6th grade, so we don't have a billion memories. I do have a lot of memories of him. And sometimes, I remember having conversations with my family, and I can see my dad getting upset a little bit because a lot of memories that are brought up are things that Rob did that were not very appropriate. And remember, he was an individual that was different than others. He was funny and defiant, and he wanted to make everyone laugh. So I see him as that. I see him as someone that modeled for me that don't take life so serious. Laugh, smile, find happiness. It's so crazy later on in life that I can see the comparison of what I got from him isn't something that's negative. And I could see why, my dad would get upset that we're talking about things that have happened. But realistically, we knew who he was, and he was prideful for who he was. He didn't care about the things that happened. He cared about making someone else's day. He built people up with laughter. He made people laugh. If anything you can say about him, you can say that he was somebody that was happy, and you always saw him smiling. Those are things that I didn't come to realize until later on in life. And because of that, he's given me so much to go forward. Part of my life changes have been find happiness, find things that are going to make you on a daily basis happy. If that means put in work, but also, be happy with yourself, be happy with who you are as a person, and be prideful of that. And he was so prideful of who he was, I thought. And I from what I remember of him, and he had so many friends. I mean, everybody liked him. So it was somebody that would make them laugh. So of course, they loved to be around him. I remember him in many ways. And some of these stories were really funny and interesting. And I'm going to put myself out there a little bit, and I'm going to put him out there a little bit because he's my brother, and I'm going to celebrate him today. And these are stories in which are crazy, but also just defining of who he was so that, he could make other people's day. And so one story is about him. here's a story that wasn't so defiant, but we used to collect money in our little Snoopy piggy banks when we were little, and they were little glass piggy banks, and Rob was really into going to McDonald's for McDonald's breakfast. So I was younger, and he saw my Snoopy piggy bank, and he made sure to convince me to break open the piggy bank, take the money out, and take us both to McDonald's. So we did that quite a few times because he convinced me, and I don't think it was very hard to convince me back in the day because I wanted McDonald's just like he did. Um, One little story I always remember of him, us breaking that open and going to McDonald's, and then, you know, having a couple days at McDonald's with the money that I saved. Another one was, I remember when he was like 15 years old, and so I was probably 11 or so, and he took my mom's car and said, "Let's go for a ride. I want to show you something." And so I was freaking out because I didn't break the rules, but he didn't have a driver's license, and we went joyriding, and we did it quite often. He would put me in the car, we'd go for rides around the neighborhood. He didn't care whatsoever. He loved cars more than anything, just like my dad. He loved my dad and working on cars with my dad, and the concept of wanting to be a mechanic, and he just loved everything about cars, and that's my dad, a mechanic who loves cars. So I was a sports kid and he was opposite, and now I wish I was a car person because it costs me a lot of money right now. But thank God I still have my dad. But in any case, the idea is, he would just take us for a ride. I mean, it was against the law, it was against my parents' wishes, it was whatever, but he made me happy by being there with him, and it's something I will always cherish. The other part is our 7-Eleven trips. This is a funny story my sisters probably could vouch for. I remember him going into 7-Eleven wearing a winter coat in the middle of summer, and literally they only put cameras in 7-Eleven because of my brother, because he would like to take candy bars and he would like to steal in front of them, almost as a challenge, and he would let us watch, and we'd be scared and he'd get a kick out of it, and it was just funny. I remember holding a grocery bag in the back of 7-Eleven. He would just come out and empty candy bars into it, and by the time we filled up that entire grocery bag, then we would go home. I remember one day sitting in my house and he'd walk in and just throw candy bars, and my sisters and I would dive for candy bars. I don't ever remember him eating one of them. I just remember him giving and giving to people and giving to people. He just wanted to see us happy, and it was his kind of way. I mean, against the law, again, and again, a bad influence, but the idea was to make us happy. And being the older brother of the family, he found his ways, and that's one of the things he would do. I'll go back to another theft story. The video game story I always get in my head is we're at the mall with my parents, and you didn't do anything in front of my dad. My dad took care of it. You just didn't. You got caught doing that, and you knew the consequence. So he had this video game, Nintendo. I remember Track and Field 2. I remember the video game. Probably still have it. And I remember him going into the store and saying, "I'm going to take this," and telling me and whispering it to me and put it in his pants. And he's like, they got sensors on these, and if I walk past those doors, it's going to go off. And he got a kick out of me. "No, don't do it. Don't do it. Dad's going to be upset. Don't do it." And him crying, or him watching me cry a little bit, about don't do it. And then he would walk out the door and it wouldn't go off because he knew it wasn't going to go off. And I, was freaking out. So he would just get a kick out of it and laugh. And, then we kind of laugh about it after. But, of course, it is something that's not appropriate, but it's also something that he did to make us laugh. And if my kids are listening to this, that means you better not ever do something like that, because the consequence also. But, and I'm, no offense, Dad, but I would catch him. You didn't. So anyway, just a few stories about him. There's so many other stories where he let me ride his friend's four-wheeler on the side of our house. He taught me how to drive that. He was showing me how to drive when I was little. Just some of the things that he would say to me, about life and about what's going on. There was some sentimental things in there as well, but there's also mainly was laugh, have a good time, enjoy life. He never took life serious, and probably was the same way up until his accident, and no matter how that works, God has put him here for a reason, and I believe that. And so I see that when people celebrate life, I have many people. We just went through a celebration of life with my Uncle James. My Uncle James was an amazing person. The same thing would make people laugh. We sat in a room full of all my family, and everyone had positive and laughing and talking. And, he wouldn't have asked for anything more than that. My Uncle James was an amazing man and, just passed away, and we just celebrated him just a week or so ago. So another celebration of life. I mean, we can go on and on. People have a million people in their life that they know or have passed away that were a big influence in their life. My grandmother was an amazing woman, and to raise 6 boys and then add in more family members that were adopted, that were amazing addition to our family, and then fostering children and really, really putting her heart out there to help people, and then loving everybody. And God, she just was a saint, and I'll never forget the handshakes of money, the $20 handshakes, the $5 handshakes, and don't let your dad see kind of thing. And even if I had got caught with it, my dad would make me give it back, and then all of a sudden I would have another $5 in my hand again because Grandma was not going to deny that. Sitting around making huge pots of pasta and making seeplies and fried dough with powdered sugar on it and just garbage bags full of it. It's just things that I'll never forget. She was so sweet to me. Obviously, my cousins and our family all loved my grandma more than anything. I didn't have the privilege to really remember my grandfather, but I just know that both my grandmothers, people that passed away in my life, a celebration of life is to remember them, to talk about them, to celebrate them, to have conversations, to do what it takes for you to really honor who they were. A lot of people will support a charity or plant a tree, maybe play some music that, remembers you of them. Like this morning, workout today, Guns N' Roses, that's my brother. Anthrax was one, Beastie Boys was one, but I will always remember that. Um, Sometimes we'll visit the gravesite and we'll have a little picnic or maybe do a memorial service, or some people release balloons and have a party. I mean, there's a lot of ways to celebrate, but I encourage you to celebrate today by just talking about your people, the people that were that influential. Do that on specific days like we've been talking about, but also, what about, find time once a month. I know how it gets after 33 years have gone by and the conversation starts dying off. And just like I went back to that idea of Coco, how are you remembered? The movie Coco, how are you remembered? I don't want my brother's memory to ever be forgotten. And I would hope that some of his friends and his people and my family still remembers and talks about him, and especially on a day like today. So I will also challenge you to do another 3-2-1. I really got some good advice from a friend that talked about how they like, you know, giving back something for you to take with you and go do on your own. And so I'm going to leave you with a 3-2-1. So three things I would like you to, if you can, on your own time, 3 things that that bring you joy in your life on a daily basis. So 3 things that bring you joy in your life on a daily basis. Now you can say people, and that's fine, or things that you do on a daily basis. Someone might say coffee. I know I have a friend that really, really likes coffee. I know there are some people that will exercise. I know I have a friend that does meditation. There are certain things, obviously I got 3 things. I got Ben, Sophie, and Danger, my dog. Those are 3 things that on a daily basis bring me joy to my life. But also, I work out, and I think that's something that I hate doing, but I enjoy results, and I enjoy the fact of how I feel afterwards. So again, building our kingdom, building ourselves up first before we build our kingdom around us, so that we have confidence to be able to bring that attention to our lives to help others around us. 3, that was 3. 2 things you will do that will make you, 2 things that you will do today that will make you feel good about yourself. 2 things that you will do today before you so you can feel good about yourself. I'm sorry. I'm gonna say that, again, eating my meal prep. I mean, I spent a lot of time doing meal prep yesterday, and I believe that eating my meal prep and staying on course with how I want my goals to go with my eating process, that'll make me feel good about myself. And then also just talking about my brother today, giving him appreciation for what he's brought to me in my life. Understanding not to take life so serious, understanding this concept of being happy. Find happiness, laugh, joy. Really important. So I'm going to talk about him like I did. And I'm going to talk about him more to my friends and my family. And I'm going to make sure my kids hear about him today. And we're going to celebrate. We're going to celebrate him. So I hope you do the same. I'm going to leave you with this quote. Life is a precious gift filled with moments worth cherishing. Embrace the joy. Find beauty in its ordinary. And celebrate every day. I think it's really important to emphasize find beauty in its ordinary, because life is going to be ordinary at times. Can we actively, intentionally look for the ordinary joys of life? The fact that you get to wake up, the fact that you get your coffee, the fact that you get to see your kids, the fact that you can talk to somebody on the phone and feel good, the fact that you can reflect on the people that were important in your life. And I really enjoy that part. So, celebrating my brother Rob today. God bless him. Hope he's looking down on us in heaven. I hope that you guys out there have respect for those people that have passed that were important in your life, and you give that appreciation to them. Signing off. Thank you, guys.